All right. Great. Well, let's go ahead and get started. Good morning again. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Manny Barbosa. I'm going to be one of your hosts for this session. You'll get to hear from my co-host, Dale Steinke, here in just a few moments. But today, we are talking a little bit about technology and digital. You know, just about every business today is affected by technology or the digital evolution in one way or another, some more impacted than others. But today we wanted to share some insights on some technology, some digital solutions that can help you meet your business objectives. But before we do that, just quickly a little bit about me. Manny Barbosa here, long time here at Liberty Mutual and Safeco, 21 years, in fact. Most of my time has been in a communications or marketing role, but really I've kind of worked throughout the business, the industry, worked with independent agents my entire time with Liberty and Safeco. You know, me and my team, our focus is really just helping you to meet your business goals, achieve those goals, and do so through looking at relationships with your clients, the technology that you're using, and more. My focuses tend to be more on branding, video, social media, niche and new markets, but really we cover the gamut. And today I am joined by my esteemed co-host, Dale Steinke. Dale, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Manny. My name again is Dale Steinke. I'm the director of the Agent for the Future Advisors. Our job is to help you grow your business, whatever it is you sell. So we each all have our areas of specialization, but we, see us as advisors to help you figure out how to become a better business. We've got our ears to the ground trying to hear and see what other agencies are doing to succeed. And then we bring those stories to you so that you can then put them into practice as well. For me, I spend a lot of time thinking about agency technology and how it all works together to improve efficiency, sales process, and other things that you're trying to do. I'm also studying quite a bit on artificial intelligence right now and seeing all the different ways that agencies are starting to use that and how it's sort of worming its way into all the different technology that we use and what that means for us going forward. I also think too about business continuity. What happens when when bad things happen, disasters and things like that? How do you stay in business? And then speaking of your business, when it comes time to sell, how are you going to perpetuate it? So we'll talk about that another time. But really glad to be here. Looking forward to having this conversation with you.
Great. Thanks, Dale. So today, we're talking all about tech and some solutions there that can help you meet your business objectives. But really, this all starts with the digitally focused customer and really how things have changed in general when it comes to the customer and technology. And if you go back with me about 15 years, the year is 2009. I remember it like it was only a few months ago. But if we take ourselves back there and think about the technology of the time, so much has changed. In 2009, the iPhone was still a fairly new device to most of us. It was only on the 3GS. And for the first time, iPhone users finally had access to video recording. And then beyond that, when we think about social media, well, all of us were mostly just starting to get a new profile and connecting with people on something called Facebook. And Twitter, it was just 3 years old. Most of us were asking, what the heck is a tweet? And in the streaming world, we think about movies and TV. Well, streaming had just surpassed DVD rentals with a little company called Netflix. And look at where we are today. So that was just 15 years ago. The rate of and the speed of technology and innovation in the past 15 years has been incredible. But it's not been without its challenges, especially as business owners. There's a lot that's had to make you weed through. What technology is going to work best for you? Which one is just a flash in the pan? Which are here to stay? How is this going to help me? How is this going to provide a better experience for both my employees and clients? And speaking of that client and our expectations overall, well, they've changed. That CRM giant Salesforce did some some survey data a couple of years ago on this, maybe about a year and a half ago, and they asked consumers a little bit about their digital experiences and expectations and kind of behaviors. And there's a couple of key points in there that I think were really worthwhile pointing out. The first one is that the majority, nearly 90%, say that the experience that a company is providing should be just about the same, just as important, as commensurate as the products or services that they offer. Now, I'll tell you, that 90 or nearly 90% number isn't necessarily surprising to me. I bet if you go back to 1954 or 74 or 2004, most people would say that, yeah, the experience should be about as good as the product or service. But what is unique about this is that word experience. That's changed. And today, experience is increasingly more digital. This survey also pulled out another really great piece of data, and it's that interactions that customers are having with companies online, those are happening. They're the majority of what's happening today. 61%, in fact, of customer interactions are happening online. What's really interesting about this data point is that just a few years ago, to the same question, that number was only about 41, 42%. So that's a significant jump in a few years. Now, yes, we did have a little something called the pandemic that really helped to accelerate this. But between all of this evolution of tech that was happening before then, and with the pandemic, which accelerated this, we've kind of had this hammered into our head that, technology is here to stay, and we need to start focusing on it and using it. And so we've been trained to use it a little bit more. And so beyond just the expectation and the experience, there's also a good reason for you to really want to focus on this when it comes to your bottom line. And this comes from research that we did here at Liberty Mutual through our Agent for the Future program. And what we find is that what we found rather through that data is that highly digital agencies, those agencies that are willing to really delve into technology, to really maximize the full use of technology and to use it both internally and externally with their customers, they're seeing much more rapid growth. In fact, those agencies are growing 70% faster than those agencies not quite doing it the same. And, there's a lot of reasons for this. So, Dale, can you share a little bit about why we're seeing this number? What are some of the reasons why this is happening for these particular agencies?
Sure. Yeah, and I just want to hit a finer point too on that last slide you were talking about, Manny, is that we're affiliated with the Agent for the Future, right, as the advisors, and we're bringing you a lot of this research. So you're going to be hearing from us about that research. We've been talking about that for quite some time as a team, and new research that's coming out as well. So you're going to see more of those kinds of insights coming from us, in Agent for the Future. So really hope that you will take advantage of Agent for the Future and look at that research and other research as well. And we'll give you the ability to do that here at the end of this. So when I think about technology in agencies, I know a lot of you are you're stressed, you're busy, you've got a lot of things going on, you're having trouble hiring people. There's all things going on with the market right now. So you're looking for any bit of time that you can get in any way that you can to be more efficient at what you're doing. And so I think of three things when it comes to technology in an agency. And the first is that getting that information more quickly from that customer and even moving it back and forth inside your agency is like, how do you do that in a way that is the most efficient way possible, that saves you time of otherwise being a data entry person to being a data validation person. And then I think about that time piece. If you're keying data in, that's a huge time suck. And really want to figure out ways to automate more things, to make it more efficient so that you can take that time that you were doing rote tasks and take that time and use it towards things that are adding value in the agency. And then lastly, there's that client expectation, as Manny was talking about. People want that experience. They don't think about you versus another agency, another insurance experience. They think about it in their lives. Think about things like online banking and other ways that we interact technologically with other businesses. They expect that of you in our industry. So let's talk about some things that as we're going through this that are going to be helpful in that regard. One last point is that if you think about it from a generational standpoint, I hear a lot of agencies say, well, not everybody wants to do things online. They don't want to use digital. They want to come into our office or call us. Looking at the generations, you can see millennials, your largest generation, they are focused on this, and they want it. They don't only want it, but when they want it, they want to be able to do that. And so it's really incumbent upon us as businesses to provide that experience so that customers can interact with you in the way they want. I think the one thing that really stands out to me is the boomers, because I hear this routinely from agencies. We'll say, "Oh, my older customers don't want to do anything online. They want to call us, or come into the office." You still got 42% of them, 4 out of 10, who prefer to do something digitally. So what I take away from that is don't assume that a customer doesn't want something. You have to ask, because you're often going to find that they may surprise you.
Yeah. Yeah. And so as we think about this technology, we think about the changing customer, and really we think about maybe that thing none of us really wants to think about these days, the hard market. We have to start planning for what comes beyond that. We know that the hard market will end, even though we're enduring the kind of the brunt of it right now. But as we plan for the future, once that hard market ends, the engine's going to start to rev again. Business opportunities are going to open up, and really, customers continue to change. Evolution of technology is going to continue. So thinking ahead, we have to start planning for what options are available to help us to not only clean up our data, to have more efficiency within our agency, to hire better, and ultimately to give that customer a more modern experience. So today, let's go ahead and dive into what some of these options are that can help you. Now, this is what our team has looked into, what we've kind of learned either through research, contacts in our conversations with agents over the years, talking with vendors ourselves. So of course, this is other people will have their own suggestions and insights. And I do ask that in the chat, you share, what are your experiences with technology at your agency? What's working for you? What's not? What are some vendors that you find have really helped to benefit your agency? What's some advice you might share with your peers on this call as we go through? And we're going to start with policy information collection. This is a big one. This is one that's really kind of come to prominence in the last several years. And if you're not familiar with what this is software that allows you to collect verified insurance information during that prospecting quoting period. Very critical time when you're trying to make sure to get all the right information to give them an accurate quote and get that speedily moved along so that you can, of course, close that business in a timely manner. And this software does an excellent job at helping you to gather all those critical details, whether it's premiums, coverages, claims, you name it, deductibles. All of this can be pulled in really in a matter of seconds through policy information collection software. With most raters, there's going to be integration, so all of that data is brought right in and populated right into some of your more common raters, for example, Easy Links or PL Rating. And so simply, how does this work? Well, it's 3 steps. With this software, you can actually send a text or an email to a prospect, and you can see the screenshots here as an example from one vendor. That individual, that prospect, would then select their carrier and sign in to their online account with that vendor. And just like that, in a matter of seconds, that data, that deductible information, claims loss informations, premiums, et cetera, all of that is immediately populated into your end of the system so that you can then move ahead with continuing that quote. So obviously some really great benefits here, one of which is that just the cut down on time, instead of waiting hours, sometimes days or weeks to get this information back, you can now get this back in a matter of minutes. So Dale, I know sometimes there's questions about the benefits of this and what are some of them. I know we've had some questions about, well, does everybody have access to their online account? So can you share a little more about some of the benefits here and kind of what we've learned on this end?
Yeah, I think I'm seeing some comments going through in chat as well about a couple of these. So Yeah, it's been really interesting. Is I when I talk with agents about it who have not heard of this type of service or seriously considered it, they're like, well, are customers willing to share their login information? Well, agent never gets that login information. It goes directly to the person's logging into the carrier. Majority of people do know their username and password, and if they don't, the process actually helps them walk through it. And for those customers who don't want to do it, you do it the way you've always done it. Where you're interrogating them over the phone. If you're using this though, instead of becoming that interrogator, you're actually then becoming a validator, where you're going through and saying, okay, now I've got your data, and I'm not spending 30 minutes on the phone with you asking you questions. What's your VIN number? What's your license number? What's all those other things? Or hey, can you get your loss runs for me on the commercial side? There are and all your named insureds and all that other stuff. This will actually pull that data down for you. And what we're seeing from talking with agents, we hear from the vendors too. We've talked with them. They're saying about 30 minutes per client that they're saving. It's you're not making money when you're doing data entry. You're making money when you're trying to figure out where what the best options are for your client, and then going into the next steps, which we'll get to in a minute here. But what we're also seeing too is there's that higher close rate. Because first of all, is it speeds up the process. Second of all, from a consumer standpoint, it's like, I don't have to sit on the phone with you. Think about it from the perspective of, if you've got a prospective client, and they call you and you say, hey, oh, great, I would really be happy to quote your small business insurance or your personal insurance. I'm going to send you a link via text or email, and I want you to fill that out. And it'll give me all the information, and I can get a quote back to you more quickly. Like, hey, that's super convenient. Now, what if they're also shopping around and they call another agent, and the agent says, hey, I need to get all this information from you on the phone? Which experience is that prospective client going to prefer? Probably not the one where they're getting interrogated and trying to dig up paperwork, or where they get asked, hey, can you go download your deck pages and send them to me? And clients like, what's a deck page? And then they send you a screenshot, which I've seen that happen with agencies. A person takes a picture with their phone and sends it to them, and you can't key that data in because it's a picture. So that's frustrating. And the other piece is the cross-sell element, is that when you're using a service like this, it pulls down all the policies that client has with that carrier. So then you're starting to see everything they have versus maybe that monoline that they, policy that they came to you for. So that gives you a leg up on the competition, only knows about the one thing that they have. There's several out there. Actually, I ran into Canopy Connect and another vendor at InsurTech Connect a couple of years ago. Where that's where you're starting to see all the new players come into the market, and it was just starting out, and it's really taken off. So you got Canopy, you got InsureGrid. Salt is a little different version of that, where it's more form-based, but it's again giving the client the opportunity to key the data in versus you keying it in. And so there are lots of different ways to attack it. But again, think about it ways that you make it easier for the client to get information to you more quickly. And this is a very interesting one to me, and I'm very curious to see where this goes.
Yeah, seeing a lot going on in the chat here about folks using different ones. In fact, I've seen Canopy and SureGrid and Salt mentioned here as well. And yeah, this works for commercial as well. At least most of them do. We can't speak. Every vendor has a certain level, I think, of how far they've kind of delved into the commercial line side, but certainly I know that Canopy does that, and InsureGrid, and I'm sure, I don't know about Salt, but they may as well. But yeah, there's always, will this work with? Maybe not. I've seen some of you say, yeah, maybe there's some low adoption. Others saying that, yeah, you're getting great results with it. And so, of course, there's always a little bit of ramp up time as people get used to a new technology as well. That's something we experience a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to throw out something else too, is that what I think is interesting about things like this is it's not something where you have to force the process on your entire agency. You could take, a producer or two and try it out. Some of these also offer free trials. But definitely, I think about it, as a way that, it'd be interesting to compare how somebody who has something like this does against a producer who doesn't. And from what I'm seeing in terms of the results, it's pretty stark.
Yeah, great. So keep on sharing in the chat. I'm glad to see the conversation. Feel free to just provide your own insights, experiences with this as we go through it. But I do want to transition to another technology enablement software that I think is really one that's severely underutilized. And boy, our team's been talking about it for years. And I think it's really a miss to not really bring it into your agency if you're not doing it yet. And that's video proposals. Really, the experience with video proposals is pretty powerful when you consider that video has been for years now the engagement leader. There truly is no better option to connect and engage with people, keep their attention, really deliver a message that sticks in their mind. And it's simple because what video does is it plays on a very simple concept of what we as humans respond to. We respond to visuals, whether it's shapes, colors, moving objects. That's just how our brain works. We respond to that far faster than we do to text. The other thing I really love about video, especially video proposals, is that it hits on two very important pieces that any customer uses when they're making a decision about who to work with. Now, there are a lot of factors there, but I usually find it comes down to two very basic things. Do you know what you're talking about? That's the knowledge aspect. And do they like you? That's the relationship aspect. And video allows you to offer both. Think about it. If you get an email and you really haven't talked to the person at all, you're not really getting much of that relationship. You're getting words, you're getting knowledge, but we're missing the relationship. And we all know that we are in a relationship business. So video engagement using video proposals for me is the way to go. That trackability, because you can send it via text or email, is really important. It alerts you, for example, when somebody views it. That gives you the opportunity to then follow up with that prospect and hopefully close that business right away. But the other thing I like about it is because video proposals are typically recorded, that customer now can view that at a time that's convenient for them, especially if they just got home from work and they've got the kids ready for bed and now they've got time to look at what's going on in their day. They can watch this video, and if they don't understand something or need to hear it again, they can simply rewind and they've got the information they need. So pretty important stuff here. I think Agent Kevin Mickelson really he sums this up nicely. People won't read an email, maybe not all of it anyways. And for him, as it is for me as well, it's easier to just say it than it is to write an email explaining all of this. I agree. I tend to have all the words coming out of my mouth really fast, and it's hard for me to sometimes keep up with my fingers or my fingers to keep up with my mouth. And so it's usually easier for me to just record myself doing it. So I hope you will consider this as an option. I am curious in the chat, is anybody doing video proposals today? And if so, what software are you using for this? And for those who aren't, Dale, what do you have for some suggestions about how they might be able to help themselves get started?
Yeah. So, it's interesting. I talked with Kevin, and I got that quote from him, and he says he has 100% close rate. And, I think it differentiates him, and that ability for you to see me talking versus me trying to craft an email and tell you something, it's just a different experience. And you can have nuance in there that you don't get through a PDF and an email attachment. So, James Castell, he is an Agent for the Future award winner, an emerging leader, and one of the things I really like about James is that he really wants to help agents like you get better at what you do. And so he put together a help video, which is that QR code there, that'll show you how to do video proposals. So step by step, longer than we're going to be able to go through. But I want to share a story that James told us. He had a customer, Walt, 75 years old. Okay, so they're firmly in the boomer category, right? Walt comes into the agency with his policy documents printed out, and he hands them to James. And James says, "Thank you. As I'm going to work on a proposal for you. I'm going to email you a video, and once you've had time to watch that video, I will reach out to you and follow up." And so, the tool he's using tells him when as Manny mentioned, that when Walt watched the video. So James sends it to him, comes back after the weekend and sees that Walt has watched the video 15 times. 15 times. So he calls Walt up because he's concerned. He's thinking, man, Walt must have had a problem. He said, Walt, so what happened? And he goes, did you have any problem watching the video? And he goes, no, I liked it so much. I sent it to my friends and neighbors. There's probably a PII issue in there, but hey, that it's Walt's data. He's the one sharing it. But here's the upshot is that he got Walt as a customer and 4 of his friends because it was so different and it made him stand out. So that one video, gets him 5 clients. So just think about things like that. And so if you go to the next one, I know there's a bunch of the names flying by in chat. Loom, Vidyard, and ScreenPal are 3 very common ones. We've seen people use Teams. I mean, even PowerPoint and Office 365 now has a video capability to it. One thing that I would caution about things like that, though, doing on the cheap, is that you don't know when somebody's watched it. Just like today, you don't know when you send somebody a PDF in an email, you don't know whether they've opened it. And I just like the fact that if you're doing these video proposals, you control the conversation, and that client, whether it's a personal lines client or a business lines client, if you talk to them on the phone, the first thing they say after they say great, they say, let me talk to my partner. And who's the salesperson then? It's no longer you. So when you have the video proposal, you are still the salesperson, and you are the one communicating your value and your advice.
Yeah, and there's some great stuff going on in the chat here asking about costs. Remember, most of these offer a free version in addition to paid. I mean, for me, the way I keep, if I do a video and if I were to use, say, for example, Loom, is usually when you do the free version, they keep it under about 5 minutes of a video. So sometimes that's a way to kind of limit yourself is just by using what the default is. But certainly there are options here for you as you look at considering some of these for your services. So again, in the chat, feel free to continue to share your experiences and what you might suggest to others looking to use these as well.
And like with anything like this too, is the first couple times maybe a little more difficult, but it gets easier the more you do it.
Indeed, always. Yeah, I want to transition to another technology, digital enablement tool that I think is really important today, and it's becoming pretty foundational, and one that I think I'm happy to say I've seen a lot more adoption with independent agents over the last 5, 6, 7 years, and that's customer self-service. So, the advantage here is pretty clear. It's that while it can't do everything and it's not intended to, it can certainly take care of some of these routine tasks to help free up just a little bit of time for you and your team. And the truth is consumers want this. Significant portions, almost 90% are looking for this. But take a look at the number there. Only about 50% of agencies actually offer this. So that's a big gap there. I'll tell you, I'm one of those people who wants to use self-service. Not that I don't appreciate the counsel or advice of somebody who knows their work well, but there are just things that are pretty straightforward that I can do for myself. Having to call somebody for a response, it's just cumbersome for me. I don't need it. And it really is a differentiator when I can do it for myself. So yeah, what we do, the world of insurance, it's pretty complex. We don't want them doing all for themselves. And again, that's not what self-service is there to do. It's to help them do some of those easier things. Hey, look, ID cards, do they need to be on the phone with you, emailing you for that? Probably not. Or making a payment, especially if it's pretty straightforward. Maybe even filing a simple claim like a glass claim. Do they need that counsel with you? Maybe. Probably not. Depends on the severity or the extent of the claim, certainly. But there are some circumstances here where between you and the customer, they will know enough to say, hey, I think I can self-serve. And again, there are limitations as to what they do. So this is not at all meant and can at all replace what you do there. So the best way to really go about this is to start by offering carrier self-service options is usually one of the ways that we typically see that agents start first. Why? Well, because your carriers already offer that. So you don't. You simply have to make sure to inform the customer about it. The trouble with that is that obviously that could mean you have to keep in mind all of your customers and which carrier they're with and whether or not they have a self-service solution. That can be a little more work. But another solution is turn to your agency management system providers. Most of them today offer some sort of self-service option, whether it's an app or a client portal that goes right into your agency website so that your consumers can easily get in and access that information and pay a bill, et cetera, from there. And lastly, Your third option is to go with maybe a mobile app, is considering a mobile app for your agency, because because there is some evidence out there that really starts to show that maybe even having a mobile app might even contribute a bit to slightly better retention. And look, there are a lot of agents out there that swear by the value of a mobile app, and there are certainly vendors that can help with this. We'll talk about those in a few minutes. But one key thing, Dale, I want to turn it over to you, is really when it comes to anytime we introduce a new service to our clients, and in this case, self-service, the challenge with this tends to be one particular thing that we find tends to happen. You want to talk to us about what that challenge is and why there's low adoption?
Oh yeah, it's like let your customers know it exists. I remember when the AMS vendors started rolling out self-service portals. Clients were, the agents were saying, well, we have it, but nobody uses it. And they're like, well, how do you promote it? And like, well, we have a link on our website. And you can just hear the room just go silent, right? And it's like, that's it. I'm like, yeah. And I like websites, they're great, but I don't necessarily assume that that enough is going to be enough promotion to tell the client that it exists. I think of it as another way that you want to use it as part of your sales process. Hey, by doing business with me, with the Manny Barbosa agency, you're going to have 24/7 access to all the things that you need, whether it's an ID card or you need to order that certificate of insurance, or you just want to make sure you're covered for something. I had an agent say to me once, "Is like worry never sleeps." And if I wake up at 3 in the morning, I want to know that I can go and pull up an app and go on your website and go into my self-service portal and know that I can look and see what I have. So in every communication with your clients and prospects, you should be mentioning that self-service exists. It doesn't have to be at the top, but you really should have it in there just to remind them that repetition. It's like you got to hit people from a bunch of different directions because they're getting hit with thousands and thousands of advertising messages every day. You really want to make sure that when you are talking about it, that it's always visible for them, so they're more likely to think about it. And Manny's point about retention too is an important one because it's an expectation. I have my online banking. I don't use it a ton, but I want to know how much my balance is. I don't want to have to go to an ATM to plug in my card to find out what it is. But I can just check my phone at 2 in the morning when I'm worried about something coming up. I don't know, but it's definitely super convenient. Again, Manny mentioned some of the vendors. For me, I teach a session on how to choose a vendor. And usually my first question is going to be what agent, when somebody says, what's the right one for me? And I say, okay, what's your agency management system? Because especially for a self-service portal, how does the customer data get to that self-service portal? Is it a conversation with AMS? Is it built into the AMS? Or is it a third-party app like Insurance Agent app or Glovebox that integrates with it? So you really want to have those conversations and understand is like, okay, so how is this going to work? And what work do I have to do to make sure that the data stays current between that self-service portal and what's in my AMS?
Yeah, very good stuff going on again here in the chat. Continue to see all of this engagement, everyone sharing their experiences. Glovebox is coming up a lot in here. Things like Podium for texting, Lightspeed. So good stuff going on here. Thanks all for sharing.
Yeah, and there's actually one thing too, is I've seen a lot of comments about cost, questions about cost. And think about these things as what's the cost of your time for doing things? And what's the return I'm going to get by saving time? So keep that in mind before focusing on the cost itself. Is understanding what's the value of what I'm getting. And so things like self-service, man, that's a huge cost savings potentially for agencies.
Yeah, Dale, it's interesting you say that. Another thing that's hard to measure is customer experience, knowing it's a differentiator, but you can't measure that. Most customers aren't going to say, well, because you had this, I chose you. But the truth is that very likely because of this technology, that may be the tipping point. There's lots of options out there. So there are going to be only a few select reasons of why they're going to go with you. Obviously, paramount to that is going to be the relationship they have. But that technology, more and more, that's also coming up as a differentiator today.
Awesome. Okay, so let's jump on. We're in the home stretch now. We got less than 10 minutes to go. So marketing automation. What this is another thing too is if you are sending email reminders to clients or announcements and marketing messages one at a time, that is another huge time impact. And I think you're going to miss things by doing that, where marketing automation can really help you send the right message to the right person at the right time in the right way. And I think of like three sort of main, areas where that comes into play. From that very beginning all the way to renewal. So you've got that prospect in personal lines and business lines, keeping them informed of what's happening. Okay, you've done this. Here's what's coming next. And by the way, we've also got self-service, and you're going to want to use that once you become a client of ours. And then when you're in that sales process, is managing expectations and next steps. And then after the sale is developing and deepening that relationship. Telling them about cross-sell and upsell opportunities, informing them of ways to protect themselves from severe weather, and that's a big impact for you to have to deal with. If you can help them beforehand mitigate damages, that's going to help you as a business, and they're going to appreciate you for that. And you can do that through marketing automation. And then also too is like, what are you doing for community involvement? A lot of you, most of you do some sort of community involvement. Building that into your marketing automation builds deeper relationships and helps your clients know how you can help, how they can help too on something that you care about, that they may care about as well. And check out agentgiving.com. I'll give a shameless plug for one of our peers. Fantastic resource for you to understand how to be great at community involvement and community giving. Okay, so I think this is another important thing too, is we know that most independent agents do not talk with their clients enough. And that's a real struggle, I think, because the only time they hear from you is when they get the renewal, and it's not coming from you, it's coming from the carrier. And so that's not a great experience when they haven't heard from you in a year. It's like, who's my agent? I think there's a question, Manny, I think you've said, is that, well, how much is the right amount? And you say that it's as long as it's personal, authentic, and timely, it's worth sending out. And so with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, and speaking of authentic and timely, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways that what you can do with automation, how it can help you maintain that relationship beyond the sale. Probably one of the most important ones is thinking about that new client welcome process. That doesn't have to be, and probably shouldn't just be, one email. Again, we've got a long time between when they're a new client and renewal that we have the potential to not contact them or be in touch with them. And maybe for some people, they don't want any contact, but every data point I look at says if it's personable, authentic, timely, yeah, it works. So here's just one example from an agent like you and kind of their own version of a welcome process. You'll see they mix text with email, with voicemail, but most agents today that I know that are doing something do a drip campaign over the course of a few weeks, a month or so. Typically, it's all email, but this varies in different ways, right, Dale?
Yeah, I'm actually, Manny, this came from a marketer development graduate, correct?
Yeah, it did. Yeah. We had somebody came through our marketer development program and they shared kind of some of their experiences and what we were talking with them about. They were able to kind of modify it a bit to incorporate some additional touch points as well. But this varies in so many different ways. So beyond the welcome campaign, there's also just those personable touch points of a birthday message. Can't tell you enough how many times I've heard from agents like you, some of you maybe even on this call, who have said that the birthday touch point is one of the ones that tends to get some of the most applause or at least acclaim or response from the client because they saw that as a very personable, real experience with you of you reaching out and taking the time. But automation allows you to do that a little bit easier, to continue to have something that otherwise took maybe a little extra time off of your plate to have to manually keep up with in the past. And of course, don't forget about the renewal, the cross-sell, the upsell process. Critical, of course, to that relationship and kind of shoring up the business with that client. So use those services to automate those messages. The nice part is most of these CRMs, these services, these automation services, they offer templates for a lot of this. So the work for you is minimal. There's some modification. There is some setup that obviously needs to happen, but they do their very best to try to get you most of the way there. And the last one I really wanted to call out is a lot of these automation services now now offer the ability to get reviews post sale once the customer comes on board. This is pretty critical because the majority of consumers certainly are looking to reviews as a very important factor as to whether or not they do business with you. And by the way, it also helps with your search engine optimization when you're you're getting these reviews and on Google and making sure you're seeing that up. So Dale, share with us a little bit about some of these vendors as we kind of go into our last piece here to wrap up.
Again, yeah. And again, as I mentioned before, when you're choosing a vendor, talking about your agency management system, you really want to have your marketing automation chatting with your AMS so that when that client gets that new policy, it stops sending them emails or texts or ringbacks that say, hey, you should get this policy. Because they're like, well, I just bought it. Why are you still emailing me? So there's a ton of them out there. Things I want you to really think about, though, is you're assessing, because I see some people are talking about assessing different vendors. Understand how it connects to your agency management system. Understand what management it will take for you to do it. Most of these are not just set it and forget it or an easy button. You still have to do some work, and you still have to manage the campaigns and make sure the right people are in them and out of them. And then understanding the ROI of it as well. How are you going to measure that, and what's it going to tell you? What kind of data are you going to get so you can tell whether your campaigns are working? Okay,
thanks, Dale.
so let's jump into the last one here. So we've talked about a bunch of things that can improve your efficiency, your sales effectiveness, your customer experience. You're still though probably trying, like, you've got more work that you can handle with everything that's going on. So a virtual assistant is an alternative to that. And I'm curious, if anybody's using virtual assistants, if you're using a service, drop it in the chat. There's a lot of them out there, and it's just new ones every time we're at an event. I see new vendors there, and so as I think about VAs, they can do things like or virtual assistants. They can do data entry and cleanup. They can do email leads generation and management. They can do marketing, quoting and renewals, accounting, HR, other back office kind of activities. I think the key, though, that I see with all of those is having well-documented procedures. They're not, the expectation is not that you just say, hey, go do some work and they're going to figure it out. They want to know what steps they need to take. Repeatable processes are really great things to have them do. So making sure you have great documentation is what's going to have a big impact on that. Okay, so Manny, looks like we jump forward. There we go. So there's a bunch of different vendors out there. Staff Boom is also out there. IA Blueprint, so Wave and CoverDesk have been around for a long time. Agency VA, really, there's a bunch of them, and there's probably a bunch flying through chat right now as well. With all of these vendors that we've been talking about, all these people are sharing stuff in chat. If there's some way you can connect up with them afterwards, great. But I always say, talk to your peers, see what they're using, and get that feedback from them. It's great to hear it from us, but really, I really love it when you hear it from your own peers and what their lived experiences are like when they're using these things.
Yeah, well, thanks, Dale, and thanks all for listening in. As we close this out, I know technology has been a disruptor for so many businesses, and not always in a good way. But in the independent agency channel, I think we're in a bit of an enviable position because our work is so complex and because relationship is so critical to this. Technology can't replace that, and it's not meant to. No matter what anybody says about generative AI, and the truth is that this is a way using technology for you to share and to continue to promote your unique value proposition, ease, choice, and advice. It's what you all do best, and technology can only allow you to enhance and augment all this great work you're doing today. So with that said, thank you so much. If you want to learn more about all the research we've done a lot over the years, take a look at agentforthefuture.com. There's also lots of articles from agents like you. Great resource to check out there. And we hope that you'll join us for our next webinar. So we're going to be sending an invite soon, but we're looking for a month from now. We're going to be talking all about the hard market, the agent customer connection there. We have a brand new research coming out on that. So we want to share some really interesting, unique highlights that are going to be coming out of that. So expect an invite from us, and we're looking forward to seeing you then. With that said, on behalf of me and Dale and the rest of our team, we just want to say thank you so much for taking the time. We'll stick around for a few minutes, but otherwise, we hope to see you at a future session. Thank you.